right, welcome to Living in the Past, where two middle-aged dudes relive their past by enjoying the pop culture of their youth. Devin, are you ready to visit Transylvania? Watch an old man crawl down the side of a castle wall, be seduced by vampire women, use bad British accents, and hunt and kill one of the most iconic vampires in the history of storytelling?
Sounds like spring break 1994 for me, Jeremy. So let's do it. Let's go back in time and relive that little treasured moment.
Oh my gosh. Yes, it's the 30th anniversary of 1992's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah.
Francis Ford Coppola directed film with kind of a who's who of the big stars at the time.
Yeah.
It's one of those films that kind of flies under the radar, and then you watch it and you go, whoa, this is weird and cool.
It's a hell of a movie.
Yeah,
it's a hell of a movie. Underrated gem.
Super, super interesting. I'm excited to talk about it. I watched it last night.
Yeah.
And I've read a good bit about it. There's a lot to this movie, Devin.
There is. And I think it's funny because I found this, I just came across it on one of the streaming services probably a month and a half ago. I'm just like, damn, I haven't seen that in so long. And it was a great overcast day. And I just said, like, I'm in. Let me go grab some popcorn.
Very cool.
I'm in. Before I even knew we were doing this. And so it's really one of those, I forgot how much I enjoyed it movies.
Yeah. It's really, it's kind of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It does some weird stuff. When did you first see it? When did you first see it?
In the theater. Theater in 92. Yeah.
Yeah, I did too. I saw it with some friends. I think I was a freshman in college when this came out. So saw it in the theater. I was a decent fan. Like everyone that was in it, Ullman was sort of new to me.
Yeah.
But like very familiar with Winona Ryder. Loved the stuff she had been in. Yeah. Liked Winona.
Is this pre or post shoplifting spree? I forget. I think this is pre. Yeah.
This is pre. This is before. I mean, she gets to the top of the list in 94 when she does Reality Bites.
Yes.
With Ethan Hawke.
And in fairness, she even going back to like Beetlejuice, there was some pretty strong allegations of theft. In fact, Jeremy, I don't know if you knew this, but she stole my heart in this film.
Oh!
Stole my heart.
Yeah, she's in Dracula. So is Keanu. So is
Sir Anthony Hopkins.
And having done some research, boy, he thought he was knighted the way he acted on sets. He was like, you must refer to me as Sir.
Well, hello, Vlad.
Tony. Yeah, he's a piece of work. There's a lot of pieces of work in this, and I can't wait to talk about it. Before we dive into the show, we just want to say thank you to our patrons, Tessa, Abby, Trevor, Travis, and Dave. You guys keep the lights on. We can't be doing the show unless it's from your support. So thank you. Another thing is we do a show in the off weeks. We do a main show twice a month. And then the other 2 weeks, we do a show called Be Kind Rewind. This week, we'll be talking vampires and maybe talk about the new Halloween film that just released in theaters and on streaming. But we also want to hear from you, our wonderful listeners. If you want to leave us a question or a comment, you can call us at 831-337-8020. That's 831-337-8020. Let us know what you think.
I'm going to break in, Jeremy, because I didn't realize that we might unpack the latest installment of the Halloween franchise. And here's my question. Here's my question. And this was I don't take credit for this question, but I heard it on, actually, believe it or not, Sports Talk Radio this last week, and it really made me think. This Michael Myers guy that we're supposed to be so scared of has been chasing the same woman around for like 40 fucking years.
It's been a while.
How scared can we be of this guy if he can't even just get like the white whale? I mean, this is like fucking Captain Ahab here. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Mike's having some struggles.
Yeah, seriously.
Some struggles. Yeah, I in prep for this newest Halloween film, I finally saw for the first time the 2018 Halloween.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Yeah.
And then I watched Halloween Kills as the sequel.
All right.
And this is Halloween Dies? I don't know.
Halloween Ends, I believe. Halloween Ends, yeah.
Something that needs to happen.
Yeah, something.
So the first one, good.
Yeah,
I guess.
Okay. All right.
Second one, not so good.
Yeah.
And we'll see verdicts out for this third one.
I don't even know. Did the previous...
No.
They didn't have Jamie Lee in them?
No, Jamie Lee's in these.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, but... What I thought you were going to say is like, well, what about all the other movies? I think they jump from Halloween original.
Yeah.
Halloween 2, 3, all the rest, they're off the books. They didn't happen. Fever Dream. So it goes from the original 78, jumps to 2018.
Whoa. Okay. So just expanded universe stuff.
Yeah. Those are canon now.
Yeah.
Those are canon.
Star Wars fans will know exactly what you're talking about.
They will.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. And Jeremy, Winona Ryder, motherfucker.
It's Winona.
Winona Ryder or Jamie Lee Curtis, your thoughts?
Oh. I think it's Jamie Lee. Oh, no, I can't say that.
Your wife's not a patron. It's okay. You can be honest.
Yeah, she never listens to that. I would probably, I guess, say, well, Jamie Lee came on the radar because she was in films before.
Sure.
I saw Winona, but I think Winona, like, when I was a college Jeremy.
Yeah.
College Jeremy really liked Winona Ryder.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. You really put me in a
that's what I'm here for. I should have saved that probably for a patron-only episode, but I'm glad I got that out while I did. So by all means, continue. Take us down the Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, so movie made some money. It made
it did.
215 mil.
Yeah.
Not bad on, I think the budget was 40 million.
Yeah. It's a good return on your investment.
I was doing the research and I came across a quote that basically said, what does Francis Ford Coppola and a kids camp have in common? And I freaked out a little bit just in today's day and age. And then I realized, have in common with Dracula. Yeah. So apparently Coppola, this great film director, when he was 17, he was working at a drama camp as a counselor. Mm-hmm. And his then girlfriend had the same job, but was working at a nearby different camp. Okay. So he wanted to wrap things up in the evening and go see her.
Right.
And just like a 17-year-old.
Yes.
We teach some of those.
Yes.
Thought, I'll just read them a bedtime story. Mm-hmm. My little kiddos, my little 9, 10-year-olds. I'm going to read Dracula to them.
Perfect.
And put them to bed. Yeah. Didn't work, backfired, but it left a huge, huge impression on Coppola.
Naturally so.
Did you ever read the book?
Hell no.
I did. And one of my favorite moments ever in high school.
Yeah.
I was destined to be a teacher in this point.
Wow.
So I had read.
Let us pray.
I read Dracula in 9th grade.
Whoa.
I read it in 9th grade, and we had a book report in 10th grade.
Okay.
And it was a lit class, right? An English class, book report, Dracula.
Right.
It was during the time period that we had to pick a book.
Yeah.
So I picked that book, read it, freaking loved it, and did this book report.
Yeah.
And I got a little into it.
Whoa.
My presentation lasted 20 minutes.
Oh, and this is like pre-PowerPoint and everything.
I'm just talking, man.
Wow.
Poor kids.
Yeah.
I had just moved from Virginia to Alabama.
Wow.
Brand new student. Brand new.
Yeah.
And I'm up there running my yapper, and I think they were paying attention.
What? Really?
I think so.
What was the tip off?
Well, they were looking at me.
Okay.
They were probably.
It wasn't that glazed over look we get from students now?
No. I think I set myself on the trajectory to being an educator.
Wow.
So
yeah. Good for you.
Good old Drac and I, we go back a long way.
I love that.
Book is really cool. It's written in a way that is like, it's done by journal diary entries. Mm-hmm. And so has this first person account, and it kind of jumps between people.
Yeah.
And some letters are involved. It's really innovative and creative. And for an 1895, 7, I can't remember, book, it's kind of entertaining. And there's some really genuinely scary, memorable things.
Really?
And what's interesting about Dracula is a lot of the movies that had come out before 92, before Coppola's version, they were based on like a stage play that was popular, but then they mixed all the characters up.
Okay.
And so when Coppola got a hold of it, he's like, I'm going to make
the book.
The book.
Yeah.
And for the most part, he does. I think there's a few sequences that I wish he emphasized a little bit more, but generally, this is the story.
Yeah, wow.
He adds a few elements. The ending's a little bit different, but overall, he stays the most true to the source material than anything I've seen.
I think that's fascinating because really, in the era that we grew up in, Dracula was largely associated with like the universal classic monsters, right? You had your Dracula, you had your Frankenstein, you had your Wolfman, your Mummy, Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah.
And they often followed this same trope over and over and over again. And so to me, it's fascinating that we have, quite frankly, like one of the biggest named American directors, certainly of our lifetime, go and say, I love the source material so much that we're going to kind of recraft how America even understands this character and this legend. It's kind of crazy.
Coppola does a lot of crazy shit in this movie.
Yeah.
And it all starts with, it's really interesting. A lot of people, when they look at the film he made before this was Godfather 3. And a lot of people are like, it's good, but it ain't like 1 and 2.
Yeah, he's lost it.
And then a lot of people point to the fact that he cast his daughter, Sofia Coppola, in a pretty important role.
Yeah.
And the reality was that Winona Ryder was supposed to be that character.
Really?
And she dropped out at the last minute.
How dare you?
And so Coppola scrambled, put his daughter in that role. And apparently, I haven't seen Godfather 3. Coda is the name of it. He's re-edited Godfather 3.
Oh.
And apparently, it's pretty decent. And it takes away some of the awkward acting moments that Sofia Coppola brought to the screen.
Yeah.
And he
still in the will, not in the movie. Gotcha.
There you go. There you go. And so fascinating kind of story is that Ryder came across a script that was going around Hollywood for Dracula.
Okay.
And she basically gave the script to Coppola as sort of a, I'm sorry. Like, hey, look at this. If you decide to do this, I'll be in your movie. And it was sort of this kind of like, please forgive me. I want to make amends. Yeah. And so Columbia Pictures gets involved. They give $40 million, make this movie. And it was one of the biggest movies in '92, and it saves George Lucas and Coppola's company that they had together. The money generated. This is before Lucas goes back to the Star Wars.
Right.
Well, for Star Wars fans, this is a dark time. So they don't have this like wellspring of money coming.
Right.
And so they basically just get saved by Dracula, which is a really interesting thought. And so they go into production, and Coppola does several things right off the bat that are like kind of batshit crazy. The first is, at this point in '92 in movies, special effects are moving into the Jurassic Park world.
Right.
So CGI, computer-heavy VFX.
Right.
You have The Abyss, and then you have Terminator 2 that have come out.
Right.
Previous.
Right.
Terminator 2 had just come out. And so you had these movies that were really dipping into that well. And everyone was saying to Coppola, use it. You need to use this stuff. And he had a whole VFX team. He fired everybody.
Wow.
He goes, everybody's telling me to do the movie this way.
Yeah.
Fuck them. Yeah. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it.
Right.
And we're going practical all the way.
Yeah, baby.
And he actually, a lot of people will say, well, Force Awakens, they're using practical effects. You remember all that with Star Wars?
Yes.
It's like, no, they're not. But what's interesting is with this movie, Coppola really does. He hires his son, Roman Coppola, to basically run all the VFX stuff. And it's all models. Some of the stuff they did was so painstakingly like detailed oriented.
Yeah.
So they would film a scene, take that film, store it, reconstitute the scene from the beginning, like put everything back together, film it again on that same reel of film. So you have almost like double exposures on it.
Yeah.
So they would do stuff like that all the time, add elements. Like they were detailed, focused.
Yeah.
There's a great sequence when you watch the movie of Jonathan Harker, which is Keanu Reeves, on a train going to Transylvania early in the film.
Yeah.
and he's like writing Winona Ryder, and in the background, it's all model stuff in the background, but then in the background, the eyes of Dracula appear.
Right.
And it's just like superimposed stuff is
Yeah.
being used, but there are matte paintings, there are models.
Yeah.
Everything you see is real. They shot, I think, almost all of it on sound stages. I don't know if they filmed anything in a real location.
Right.
It's all
That's
set.
pretty incredible because
set design. Yeah.
One of the most iconic scenes, or at least the most indelible scene for me, is that stagecoach ride. We've got the setting sun, and that is so well done.
It's good
that
stuff,
I just
man.
like it. Just sticks with me, even though I hadn't seen the film up until this most recent watching, probably since mid-90s.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I was looking forward to most rewatching the film is that particular scene.
Yeah, that scene for me as well really stands out.
Yeah.
It's just crazy what all they did in this movie. And I feel like critically, when I look at Dracula, at times it's a little disjointed, but when it's firing like on all cylinders, it's really phenomenal filmmaking. And the reason why is you got Francis Ford Coppola making it.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why he's considered a great director.
Right.
And he's going against the flow of Hollywood in that moment.
Right.
Almost in a rebellious way.
Right.
And he's doing that, and he's trying to create something, and everything he does is, when I was reading about Dracula, I'm like, no one does this. So he brought all the actors together. They were up in Napa Valley.
Yeah.
Brought them all together for like rehearsals. Oldman even said in an interview, he's like, I don't get these opportunities often, so this is great.
Sure.
Brings them all together. They are doing the weirdest shit. Like, I watched it. I watched this making of documentary. So they're all, I'm not lying what I'm about to say. So imagine all the actors. Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah. Sir Anthony
He's
Hopkins.
won an Academy Award for Silence of the Lambs before this movie.
Yeah.
So it's Hopkins, it's Reeves, it's Campbell is there.
Right.
It's of course Winona's there. They're all standing around, and this was one of the things they did.
Yeah.
They're in a big circle facing each other, and then they were, you know how you'd like pass something, and they were passing their voice. So someone would make a noise like "yee," and then the other actor would take that and respond and go "woo," and like look at someone else, and like someone else go "chip chip chip," and then like look at like, and they're
the hell.
I'm not. Those are the sounds they're making. And they're just and they look like idiots. Like you can see it, and they're catching it, from each other and throwing it back and going, you know. And they're like, that was some of the stuff they're doing.
Wait! I have to put my lesson plan together for Monday. Hold on. Okay, got it.
Our students will love this. Thank you, Coppola. But he did all sorts of weird stuff, like really.
But
weird.
what was like the point of that? Because did the documentary go into like what he wanted them to get out of that, other than just kind of being a freakazoid?
That he wanted them to be super embarrassed around each other.
Yeah.
And act really stupid.
Okay.
And then see each other act stupid.
Yeah.
And so one of the actors says, I can't remember who says, so when you go up to like Hopkins and go, hey, I think maybe we should do the scene this way. You've had this totally awkward, dumb experience. So you're kind of been embarrassed in front of each other.
Yeah.
So it actually makes your collaboration a little more.
So the defenses come down.
Yes. It was stupid looking.
Forget the lesson plan, Jeremy. I am not going to say a word to the rest of our academic leadership team, and I'm going to roll that out on a faculty meeting. But you're going to have to play along.
Yeah,
we're going to do this.
I will.
Yeah. Oh, this is going to be gold. Gold.
We'll bond. It's so unbelievable. So yeah, I mean, he brought them all together. So think about he's rolling into making Dracula.
Yeah.
He fires his VFX team.
Yeah.
He hires his son.
Yep.
He gets all these actors together. They act like complete idiots. They have like actor camp.
Right.
And Coppola is so weird as he's making this movie. Like Hopkins he would say, like the script would just disappear, and like the 2 pages that we were working on is gone. And then the next day there's a new 2 pages. They like write on the, and like Ullman would go and say, I think we should do this. I think my character should do this.
Yeah.
And Coppola would be like, sure, let's do it. That makes sense for the story. And one of the most funny moments that's actually in a documentary.
Yeah.
Is Hopkins is like, if you watch the performance, it's really interesting. I don't know if they shot it in sequence, but like Hopkins is playing Van Helsing, and at one moment, he's early in the film, he's a certain way. You see him lecturing to medical students, and then he shows up to help in this case. Lucy, one of the Sadie Frost's character, is like, she's been basically attacked by Dracula and is sort of having all these problems. So they bring Van Helsing in, and Van Helsing is his personality changes, and maybe that was a decision, but like at first he's kind of a proper English guy, and then he just starts acting freaking weird. And one of the scenes was totally his idea. Is he says, well, when I see Lucy, when I see Mina, Winona Ryder's character, for the first time, he's like, I'm so fascinating with the vampire stuff. He's like, I'm going to smell her face because she's been with. And so watch the movie. Like he kind of dances with her, kind of freaks her out, and then go and sniffs her face. And so in the documentary, they show Hopkins come to Coppola with this idea. And they're like, I think I should smell her face. And Coppola's like, that's a great idea. Let's do it. He goes, let's rehearse it real quick. And they rehearse it. Poor Winona Ryder's like, what the hell is going on? But she plays along, and so there you go.
You know, usually we're a pretty tame group. We don't wade into politics and stuff. But really, when people complain about current President Joe Biden doing this, is he just reenacting parts of this documentary and Sir Anthony Hopkins' character?
I think he was inspired. I think he's inspired.
I can't wait to tweet that out later today.
Show like the clip from the documentary, and then show Joe.
Yes.
Oh, here's our president. That's
awesome.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Oh man. Well, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk some more about this crazy batshit crazy movie. All right, so it's 1462. Constantinople has fallen. The Turks are coming in. And they're conquering Europe. And that's how the movie starts. We see Dracula as this, as Vlad the Impaler, kind of defending Christendom. And the movie starts off, the setup is this. There's these invading armies. The numbers are overwhelming. Dracula goes to stop them with his smaller army. It looks like he isn't going to, win, survive, blah, blah, blah. He's married to a Winona Ryder who doesn't go by Mina, but instead goes by Elisabetta. And so he wins, surprisingly, and he's like, yeah, I did it. But Winona Ryder doesn't believe he would have done it, so she's dead. She throws herself off the castle into the water below. Dracula finds his beloved dead, and basically... because she committed suicide, a priest played by Anthony Hopkins in 1462 says, well, she committed suicide, she's going to hell, sorry buddy, and he curses God, and then in turn gets cursed by God, and that's how the movie starts. He becomes a vampire. And I don't know, I mean, what do you think about the setup? I mean, does it work? Is it
well, I mean, I think Gary Oldman is mid to late 30s at this time. Winona is a fresh 21. So right away, I like where this is going, Jeremy.
Oh, God. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Our viewers just went way down. Or way up.
I was going to say, we just tapped into a completely new demographic.
I don't know if I want that demographic.
Well, we've talked about Pale Rider, and this is just the natural extension and the natural journey for this particular podcast.
Pale Rider, good Lord. Good Lord.
I like the setup. I like the setup. I think that having not read the book in high school, Jeremy, I wouldn't have known any better from the actual book, but and correct me if this is wrong, because my wheelhouse is U.S. history. This is more of a world history thing. But the backdrop for what we get right here, there's some actual historic accuracy that goes along with this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Vlad the Impaler did just that. He tried to defend the church, Christendom, the kingdom of God, from these invading Turks, and was brutal in doing so, which... Hence, that's where he gets the name. it's interesting. I worked, goodness, it's weird. I met my wife in 1998, and I had been, over the past 2 years before I had met her, I'd been working in Romania. Mm-hmm. And I actually worked in those very mountains at a camp that was 10 minutes away from Dracula's castle. I've seen the castle. Whoa. It's pretty cool. And, there's all sorts of rumors and like stories. And it's really, really kind of if you like horror, it's a fun, creepy, weird place to be. Yeah. But like, it was all the talk, like just in fun with my friends that were Romanian, just like, hey, let's go see Dracula's castle. Where's Dracula's castle? Do you tell me some Dracula stories? It was always coming up, but like, it was interesting at times. There was a lot of like pride and this is our story. Yeah, it's kind of scary,
fascinating.
But that whole area, just for filmmaking, I don't know how many movies have been made in those mountains, but it's a really cool place. Yeah, it's really it's beautiful. Yeah, and I think those Transylvanian mountains are just gorgeous. Right, and it's interesting that area. There's a lot of Hungarian speaking Romanians in that area, so. It's just really interesting, and just having that experience and just, but yeah, the story of Dracula is something kind of known, and it's talked about. Right. It's not, it's just part of their culture.
Yeah. It's not just American pop culture.
Yeah. Yeah. The roots are pretty deep. And then of course you throw all these movies on in this book and all that. There's a little bit more. The early part of the movie, critically speaking, I find it to not. I really start to get into it when everyone's in London. Mm-hmm. So the whole opening, and so we go from that to Keanu Reeves going to Dracula's castle. Yeah, and in terms of filmmaking elements, like there's some really cool, creative stuff done. Mm-hmm. Like the shadow will move one way, but Dracula, the person moves another. Right. At one point, Dracula sees a portrait of Mina, who looks just like his wife. Yeah. And the shadow starts to choke Keanu Reeves, but the Dracula is just standing still. Right. So it's really cool. Some of that stuff that they did. The set design is completely bonkers. The movie won 3 Academy Awards. Yeah. The costume design, I think, was one of the award winners, but like the stuff they were doing is just, it's kind of amazing and it's captivating, but I felt it was a little disjointed. I felt like the tone just kept shifting. I think Keanu Reeves' acting was it would take me out of it because he would try to do a British accent, and then he would go to his American accent and then go back to the British. So as a viewer, I'm like, I'm a little...
What's happening?
Right. Oldman is incredible. Right. Like, he's so incredible as Dracula. He's one of the best Draculas we've ever had. But I've always felt off kilter, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's what Coppola wanted. But it's not until they get to London and the London stuff starts happening that I'm like, I really start to like, this is cool. I like this. I will say one thing. One of the most memorable moments of the book is Jonathan Harker. You're reading his journal entries, and he's trying to figure out what is going on. Yeah. Like, things are just not right. Yeah. And one night he opens his window and just looks out, and he notices right below him, the window opens below him in the tower, and Dracula looks out. But I don't think Dracula knows he's there. Yeah, wow. And Dracula gets out and just starts climbing down the side of the wall, and Jonathan Harker, like in his journal, just like he's writing, like, I freaking lose. I mean, it was scary. Yeah. Wow. And they show that scene in the movie, but he's looking kind of across, and it just didn't have the dramatic effect. And that's one of those things where you read the book and you're like, I hope they do this. And then it's like, it's not
it's inevitably a letdown.
Yeah. And that one just, I still remember that moment from that book. It's just so terrifying. The way it's written is so well done. Yeah. And like, you're just there with Jonathan Harker. He's looking out and he's like, what is going on? What am I doing here?
Yes, so, I love it.
So you have everything from Harker trying to figure out what's going on, the weird stuff with Dracula. Harker like bumps into these 3 vampire women, and they want to attack him, but Dracula doesn't let him. And then one of the most horrible moments is Dracula gives a baby to these women, and these vampire women, they devour the baby. Yeah. And it's like, oh,
it's pretty gnarly.
They're evil.
Yeah.
It's not happy, handsome vampire.
Better Keanu interaction with the vampire women here, or we go to Devil's Advocate when
yeah. I think he's better in Devil's Advocate.
I think he is too. I mean, he's matured a little bit as an actor. What is it? That's like 95-ish, 96?
90s, yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's definitely after Speed, which that's the thing. Let's talk about Keanu for a minute, because a lot of people like crap all over this movie because of Keanu Reeves. Yeah. And they're like, he's terrible. Like, he isn't that great. And you know, you want to look back at like the 91, 92 year and go, okay, who should have played that if Keanu Reeves isn't doing well? But the thing about Keanu Reeves is like, it's not that I don't like the guy. In fact, Coppola is like, he struggled.
Yeah.
But I love him so damn much.
Yeah.
He's like, I think Coppola even referred to him as like a prince. Like he's like such a good person.
Yeah.
Like I wanted him on the set. He's so delightful.
Yeah.
And I think even Winona Ryder talked about like how hard he worked to try to do the British accent, that it was killing him. Yeah. Like, cause he couldn't do it.
Right.
And that bums me out, because you see movies like Speed or Point Break.
Yeah.
I have no problem with Keanu Reeves in those movies.
Not at all.
Like, it's great.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Like, so there's movies where he fits.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you. I don't think Dracula he fits.
No, I think it's fairly wooden.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think we almost get into this like stereotype of a character because I think it in some way detracts from his character, but also it detracts from the other acting going on. But so there's like a hotbed of young actors around this time, though. Right. So do you have like some replacements in mind if you could kind of go in the way back machine and replace Keanu with somebody else?
Yeah, and I'm curious what our listeners would think. River Phoenix dies in 93, I think.
Ooh, okay.
So this would have been one of his last projects. I think River Phoenix would have been great.
That's a good call.
I think there was something like, could he bring off the British accent? I think he could have.
Yeah.
But there's something about him that if you remember like the beginning of The Last Crusade, the Indiana Jones movie, where he's like kind of panicked trying to get the Cross of Coronado back home and like get the cross to a museum.
Right.
There was this kind of panic, desperation, excitement, heroic, like Jonathan Harker needs to be all those things. There needs to be some, because he escapes the castle.
Right.
And they show that in the movie, him like crawling out and all that stuff. And that dramatically could have been much more. When I watched it with Keanu Reeves, I'm like, okay, he's escaping. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But you could have played that up as this like desperate escape attempt that I think River Phoenix would have like brought.
Yeah.
A lot.
It's a great call. It's a really great call.
So he's the one that jumps to mind. Yeah. Leo's too young. He's not. He's way too young.
Right.
So there's not a lot that I would think of in that time frame that I would pick. Is there anyone that comes to your mind at all?
I think if we're gonna stick in the vampire realm, I think I'm a little on the line with this, but I'll throw the name out there. I think Kiefer Sutherland would be an interesting pick.
Yeah.
I also think, and shame on me for even saying this, but it's also within that realm of vampires. But I think even like Mr. Thomas Cruise could have done a good job. Yeah. Even going, because I know Interview with a Vampire comes out in
94.
94. Okay. Yeah. But even one of Tom Cruise's co-stars in that, help me with the name because I can see the face.
Brad Pitt, Christian Slater, and Interview.
Christian Slater.
Yeah, Christian Slater.
I think he has enough of that. I think
Slater would have been the right age, right?
Yeah, I think he kind of. I think the word I'm looking for is like more of wholesome, right? He kind of has that appearance. He's kind of almost portrays these characters, and you even look at from Young Guns 2, it's almost a naivete about him. And I think that there's something that he nails that I think would fit well within the context of the Dracula story.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot like Christian Slater, like he did have range. I think a lot of people think of his Pump Up the Volume character and think that's him.
Right.
But like I think he could do more than that. And I
agree.
think we see it. So that's a really interesting pick. Yeah, there's some fascinating. I think I hate to say it this way, Keanu Reeves, you'll never listen to this, but if you happen to, I think you're amazing.
Yes.
I think almost anyone would have been better in this role. I just don't think it works.
But let me ask this though.
Yeah.
Let's say that Francis Ford Coppola at some point goes, you know what? We're just going to ditch the fake British accent and just you be you.
Yeah.
Do we have a different outcome? Do we have a different view of Keanu in this role?
So.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think an audience would be like, oh, cool. Like I don't think they would care.
I think American audience would go, there's a book? I don't think that they would have like
reading. Yeah.
I don't think that they would have slighted him for not having a British accent versus having a bad British accent.
Yeah, I think that the challenge in a movie like this is like you got Hopkins just doing crazy shit.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like smelling like Winona's face, and he's hilarious, and he's like doing weird stuff.
If I can just say, as long as we're replacing cast members,
yeah.
Can we just sub out Sir Anthony and put in another person who was already a well-known commodity, but I think based on some of the eccentricities of that character would have been gold in a really weird way. But give me Robin Williams. Give me Robin Williams in that role.
If he could do a British accent for the whole
and just
film.
Let him go.
Oh, God. It's so funny because you see like Hopkins acting and then like, yeah, of course, Gary Oldman acting and just this cast. Like there's people coming in there throwing like 100.
Yeah.
And then you got Keanu who can't even throw like 60.
He's just hoping to hit the bag, man. Just come on.
He's just trying to get over the plate. To get over the plate. So it ggets to London eventually. Dracula's whole plan is because Mina is there to get to London. He's bought all these properties. The book is this way. Like he's taking soil from Romania. Mm-hmm. That's a part of it. He has to sleep in the soil of this country.
Yeah.
So he's taking all of that over to England. And what's interesting is like there's a long section of the book of the ship's voyage.
Yeah.
And it's all the diaries of the captain and the first mate.
Yeah.
And like they have all this cargo and then guys start dying on the ship. Yeah. And they touch on it a little bit in the movie, but like the book, it's a whole like I think it's a couple chapters. I mean, it's like it's its own thing.
Is it more scary. Mystery or is it more like horror oriented?
Well, it starts off mystery. What's going on?
Yeah.
Wait, where is this guy?
Yeah.
Where is this guy?
Wow.
What's going? And then like finally it comes down to just like a few guys left, and they're like, we got to figure out who this is. We got to kill this person.
Wow.
And it would be a great standalone story. It's really good.
Yeah.
The BBC did a Dracula series recently, and I watched it, and they spend a lot of time on the ship.
How were their British accents, by the way?
They were British.
Were they?
Yeah, they were British. Movie or the show, it's like a 3-episode. I just like it didn't end well. Oh. Like it gets into modern times and like there's like ancestors are involved. I just did not like it. And that's the thing. Like everyone feels like they have to play with this story, and Coppola is like, I'm not going to really mess with it too much. Yeah. Like I'm going to keep it as intact as I can because it's good.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that BBC, I wouldn't recommend it if anyone's like, oh, I want to watch that. Don't. It's not worth your time. Not worth your time.
Unless you're into the accents, then do it. Then dive in.
Then you dive in. Say things in British along with them. So we're in London. Dracula is there. It still at times feels a little disjointed, but then I think it really gets moving is when Lucy is attacked and like the men around her, because she has all these like suitors. Like there's a guy named Quincy from Texas. There's a guy named Arthur who's like
Entourage.
Yeah, they're all like vying for her affection,
and rightly so.
And and so Lucy she gets attacked. Mina meets Dracula. So you have all this stuff going on dramatically that's really interesting. And I think when Oldman and Winona Ryder meet on the streets of London, there's this kind of awkward exchange and finally kind of wins her over. And it's just so well done and the acting is so good. I'm like, this is cool. Like this is interesting. And I think for this movie to work, Oldman and Ryder have to have like chemistry,
right? And
I think they do.
Yeah.
Did you feel that way?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the believable things about this film is how they play off one another. I mean, you really, I think at some level sense very to very high level, like you sense Vlad's loss, and his mourning, right?
Yeah, he at times he's a weird character because he's like he does these evil things. He's been cursed, yet he's likable,
right?
And like you feel his loss. You feel like sympathy,
right?
He's sympathetic, and you're like, oh, I hope he can hook up with his reincarnated love. Why not? Like Keanu Reeves, he's stuck over there with the vampire women in Romania. Like whatever. It's funny, and in fact, I don't want to get to the end, but it's worth talking about right now. Is that so? Coppola does a screening, and there's two guys in the room screening the movie. A comic book artist who was starting. He later goes on to do Hellboy.
Okay.
Mike Mignola, I think is his name. Great artist, comic book creator, and George Lucas.
Oh yeah.
And so the three of them watch the movie, and it doesn't work. And they're like, this isn't good. And Lucas says, you made a huge mistake. You gave the rules, and then you broke all the rules at the end. And what had happened was, if you recall the movie, Lucy becomes a vampire. Like Dracula turns her to a vampire.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where the men, Helsing and kind of the entourage, they find Lucy's. She's been dead. Yeah. She's buried. They go to kill her.
Yeah.
Like kill her undead self.
Right.
She's not in there. She arrives with a child in her hands. She's like a vampire.
Right.
And they run a stake through her heart and they chop her head off.
Yeah.
And they get to the end of the movie, the original filming.
Yeah.
And the first cut of the film, you get to the end. There's the chase, all the stuff we've talked about.
Right.
Get to the end. Quincy stabs Dracula, and Winona Ryder goes in with Dracula and kind of finishes him off, like puts the stake through him or pushes the knife through him.
Yeah.
Gets up, walks out, and joins Jonathan Harker, Keanu Reeves, and they kind of go off into the sunset or sunrise or whatever.
Right.
And it's like, yay, and like you got to cut his head off. Lucas is like, you got to cut his head off and don't have him go off and don't have her go off into the sunrise with Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Like, this is her love.
Yeah.
You got to end this tragically.
Right.
Like there's no other option.
Yeah.
And so Coppola's like, well, shit, you're right. So they had to bring everyone back together and reshoot the end. But it's because Oldman and Ryder have this chemistry. It makes sense. And she cuts his head off. And it's interesting. Like you got to that point and like Coppola just couldn't figure out the ending.
Couldn't stick the landing.
He couldn't stick the landing. Yeah. And then Lucas is like, well, you just broke all your rules. You got to cut his head off.
I love that for so many reasons though, because I think, among other things, it's a great tale to tell. But I think also it's just proof that even the most talented, whether it's directors or carpenters or whatever else, it's always so valuable to not get so close to your project that you're not afraid to tear it apart.
I think, yes. And I think the reason why Coppola is so great is he's a great artist.
Yeah.
He's a great filmmaker. He has an eye of seeing things that is unique and different than a lot of people.
Right.
So he's a talented filmmaker. But I think what makes him even more special is his willingness to collaborate, his willingness to listen to other people, his actors. I mean, even as silly as some of that stuff was, he allows Hopkins to do this bizarre thing with Winona.
Yes.
And he's like, well, that would make sense. He's kind of fixated.
Right.
And Helsing is kind of nuts himself.
Yeah.
And
right.
Why not?
Yeah.
And so he's always willing to rewrite stuff, try new things. I mean, if you watch Hearts of Darkness, which is the documentary on Apocalypse Now, making Apocalypse Now, he's doing that shit all the time.
Yeah.
Where he's like, oh, let's rewrite this. Let's do it this way. Let's do this thing. He's doing this stuff all the time. And I think that's a mark of a good artist, but also just a humble guy.
Yeah.
He's prideful like everyone else is prideful.
Right.
I'm sure at some points he's like, well, I made the fucking Godfather movie. Shut up. I'm sure he's had moments like that. But at the same time, when he's creating something.
Right.
He is listening to other people.
Yeah.
There are times though where, like, if you watch the documentary, it's floating around on YouTube, he gets in an argument with Oldman. Like, he's like, why are you wanting, like, talking to Gary Oldman, why are you wanting to do it this way? No, we're not. And Oldman storms off. Like, it's all in the documentary. You can watch them get in a fight.
Yeah.
And so there's things that he'll believe in and stick by, and he has a will to make things happen. But at the same time, he has this willingness to, like, oh, I need to change that, or I need to work on that, or I need to fire my VFX guys, and
dump the entire team, and
start over and different and be original. And you know, the film is very much like German expressionism. It's a film movement of like the 20s and into the 30s, and there's shadows, and of course, the famous vampire movie Nosferatu comes out during that time, and film noir comes from German expressionism. So Coppola constantly, as he's making this, he's diving back into these 20s. Like, at times the frame rate is real choppy.
Yeah.
He's shooting it like, I don't know, it's under 24.
Yeah, which
is
crazy.
Yeah, he's shooting it like, it could be like 15 frames a second. Like, I don't know what he's shooting at, but it's like real jerky, and like it feels old at times. The chase is filmed in a certain way, which I think the music with that chase sequence and the sun going down, dude, that's some high level filmmaking.
I don't know that you could possibly add to that section of the film. I really don't.
So good.
Yeah.
It's so good. And it's something that, like, I would love someone, it's 30 years ago. Like, isn't it time for someone to take a run at this again?
What now? You mentioned, what was it, Nosferatu?
Yeah.
Someone's rebooting that right now, I think.
Oh, really?
I think so.
What?
I'll let you look that up because it's easier for you to clack on your keyboard. But I think that there's a reboot of that coming out.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, my question would be this: if if this story of Dracula is remade, and Nosferatu, it was made in like 1921, 22, somewhere right around there.
Yeah.
It's just retelling of the Dracula story. And, and it holds up. Like, if you ever see that old black and white German,
it's worthy of your time. It really is
creepy as hell. And it's on YouTube. You can, it's like, there's no copyright infringement on it. So it's all over the place. But I wonder, who would I want to give Dracula to today? Is there anyone that, like, jumps to your mind? Like,
oh man, gosh,
I have someone in mind.
So here'd be an interesting twist, because she is an Academy Award-winning director, and that would be Sofia Coppola.
Yeah,
I don't know,
why not? She'd be great. Yeah. I would love to see a
Michael Bay.
Yes,
just give me some explosions.
The chase scene, like wagons are exploding and gypsies are getting launched off into the dude. Like, yes, it's crazy. There's a guy named Mike Flanagan who made Midnight Mass.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Midnight Mass is like one of the best things I've seen in the last several years.
Yeah,
it has stuck with me in an era when so much of our media hits us so quickly and then disappears, and we're just bombarded constantly.
Yeah.
I still think about Midnight Mass.
Wow.
It's really special, I think. And if you don't know what it is, I think it was like a 6 or 7 episode, like, limited series on Netflix. Flanagan is an interesting guy. He is a Catholic, and he has made a lot of different horror shows. Like, he's done like The Haunting of Blythe Manor or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's made some of that
series.
He's made some of that stuff, but he keeps this acting troupe together.
Yeah.
It has Elliot from E.T.'s like Henry Thomas is in this group.
Right.
And this group of actors follows them from project to project. I love that shit.
Yeah.
And it's like a traveling troupe, you know, and they go make things together. And I love that. I would love to see, because he's so religiously minded and he's critical of the church, but at the same time he's very generous to the church, right, at right times and in right situations. And Dracula is so religious. There's so much of Christianity wrapped up in it, and God and Satan and like evil, and just these themes are so fascinating. I think someone like Flanagan could take that story and just like
Well, the series Haunting of Bly Manor, which was, I think it's like technically like part 2 of a greater trilogy.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think the first one was like Haunting of Hill House or something.
Yes.
And that was much more of like a traditional horror flick.
Right.
Whereas Haunting of Bly Manor was extremely well done, in my opinion. And it was much more of this, and I don't want to spoil for any of you that haven't yet seen it. You should go watch it.
Yeah.
But this unfolding of these macro themes, some of them that you just touched on. And I think those quote unquote scarier moments were done with such like precision and subtlety.
Yeah.
It just made that entire series just such a wonderful experience. And so that's really even more of a question. Like, would you rather see like a retelling of the Bram Stoker version of Dracula in more of a series format, Jeremy? Or do you want to see like that theatrical release?
Yeah, the hard part is like BBC just did this like 3-episode series. I'm like, well, shit, you know, and they're trying to be all clever and redo it. And it just fell short, man. It's like, it had some really good stuff, but like overall it just didn't measure up. I would go limited series.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Flanagan's like filmography. Like he's a horror guy. Like he did Dr. Sleep, which I think is phenomenal and often overlooked. It's a sequel to The Shining. He did Gerald's Game, where the woman is like handcuffed to the bed and her like lover dies and she's stuck there. That's really cool. He's done, of course, he's working on The Fall of the House of Usher, which is coming out soon. So I would say get him and get his little actors and let's do this. But I think there's other filmmakers that could do just
for
as
sure.
Good, so.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that idea. I think that's a great call. You know, so let me just take a quick rabbit trail.
Yeah.
We started off kind of at the top of the episode talking about kind of like the classic Universal monsters, Dracula, of which is included in that. Do we want to see, you know, Tom Cruise tried to reboot like the Mummy franchise, didn't go over too well. Do we want to see more of these classic monsters rebooted for new audiences?
I think why not? I mean, we live in an age where everything is just recycled.
Nothing new.
Recycled. Like I'm totally up for that.
Yeah.
Like why not? If they're going to recycle some of the shit they're doing, like let's go ahead and grab the Mummy and let's go grab some like Wolfman and like the Invisible Man and let's take another run at it. You know, why not? And I think there was some good ideas with bringing the dark universe or whatever they were calling it of all these Universal monsters back together, but it didn't work. But I think it's worth considering again.
I think it is too. Is Dracula like your favorite classic?
I think so. Invisible Man's always like weird and strange to me. And it's like it deals with just the fact of being invisible places you in a quandary when it comes to morality.
Sure.
Like if you become invisible, what are you going to do? And like I think you can go so far of doing noble things, but just by being invisible, it just like opens the doors to so many horrible things.
For sure,
And Paul Verhoeven dealt with that a little bit in like The Hollow Man. I don't know if you remember that. He was like the guy was just a scumbag, Kevin Bacon. And so like that's really interesting. I think you can really do something with that. And where you're really wrestling with like the morality of it. Is there one that you like kind of like latch onto or
I'm just kind of a fan of the aesthetic of Creature of the Black Lagoon. I think that could be really well done with our modern technology and some of our newer actors and directors that are kind of fresh on the scene and stuff. I think that there's something there.
Yeah, it's great. Even when the creature shows up in like Monster Squad. You remember that movie where the kids fight the universe? That's such great stuff. And it's like Creature from Black Lagoon's in it, and he's wonderful. And I remember seeing that movie in 3D.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. So of course we get to the end of Dracula, we get the big death scene. It's just really amazing filmmaking that it's in some ways it's recycled too. I mean, but they're using things that hadn't been used in such a long time. So they have these like matte paintings where you would just do like you would film on location. They don't film on location. They film on a set with a matte painting. And it's just like, wow, okay, you keep making these decisions, But the decisions that he makes to do this, to have a totally controlled environment and using these more classical elements of filmmaking that even go back to the silent era,
right?
It really makes this film stand out, because it's a little more modern, and I love that. I love the way it ends. I think the climactic action sequence is really cool, where Dracula figures it out, and the gypsies are trying to get him home as the sun's setting. That's just like dramatically, that's good stuff.
Yeah, it is,
and it works. And just the whole film is something I think people should revisit. Well, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to do There Can Be Only One.
There can be only one.
All right, I think we know the answer. What's the single best thing? It can be a character, moment, scene, line, theme, song, etc. What's the best thing about the movie, Devin?
It's got to be the carriage and sunset scene.
Yeah.
It's not even close. I mean, close would be Winona, but beyond that, it's that scene.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the chase scene, the big fight at the end, the kind of climactic moment, that whole sequence is surprisingly like top notch, top tier, and really well done. I would say if I had to do a close second, of course, Winona, but I would then say just like as a film teacher, the techniques used are so much fun to kind of pick apart.
Yeah.
Go, oh, look what he did here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, look what they did there. Like, oh, look at that matte painting. It's obvious, but it fits.
Right. Yeah.
So there's this constant as I'm watching it, just like, well, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Like just the techniques used, the way they shoot certain sequences. There's even a confrontation scene where Dracula turns Mina, like he has her drink his blood.
Yeah.
And they burst into the room, and he like kind of towers up as this kind of monstrous Dracula, kind of like a bat thing.
Yeah.
And Hopkins puts the cross up, and the cross catches on fire.
Yeah.
And it's such a cool sequence, and that's real terrifying, but it's all practical.
Yeah.
Like if you watch the making of, like, he's in this costume.
Yeah.
And like there's nothing added. There's it's not a CGI creature.
Right.
And I think even moments like that, you're like, wow, that's really crazy how they did all that. And he's like on stilts, and
which is why Robin Williams would have been perfect for that scene.
Like just employing like use of the genie from Aladdin, talking in different voices.
Yes.
Like suddenly talks like Humphrey Bogart for some reason. Like that'd be glorious. Oh man. Well, you guys can find us on Twitter at Livin' in the Past, LIVIN the Past. We're also on Patreon. We got some great things coming up. We have we are releasing content on YouTube. We have some videos that we're sharing with our patrons first before it even sees the light of day on YouTube. And one of the videos we have coming out soon, hopefully, is the Road Warrior villains. We did the Road Warrior recently, and we have this little 10-minute video that we're going to be putting up on YouTube. But it'll be available to our patrons now, hopefully, the time you hear this. We'll be doing Samurai Cop in the coming weeks. Our first episode of Video Revelations. Our patrons are able to watch that full episode, the whole movie as we watch it, and then we'll edit it down for mass consumption to about 10 minutes. So that's coming up. That's on the docket. Our next episode is Be Kind Rewind. We'll be doing listener calls, and the best vampire movies will be one of the big topics. You can call us, ask us a question, leave a comment at 831-337-8020. I can't wait to kind of further myself into this Halloween season. It's going to be great fun. As always, thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.